Len and Ablat Gemara. We are up to Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis on the bottom of the page. We sort of started yesterday. We'll go through again. We're talking about here if the bone was broken, but there's flesh all around the bone, then we say that the bone will heal and the flesh protects it, and the animal is not treif. We're up to the bottom of the page. What happens? What about tender, sinews? Also the kame the rabba. So the very bottom of Ayin Vav Beis on the bottom of the page. So what protecting a broken bone, flesh. What about if you have this sign who's Gidin came before Rabba and asked him what's the din over here? Omar Rabba. So Rabba said, Lamai Lechuslo. What are you worried about? First of all, the Amar Rabbi Yechanan, maybe the question is it considered like meat and therefore it protects the bone or not? And it helps the bone heal. First of all, I don't know what the problem is. First of all, Rabbi Yechanan said, Gidin sheseifim lahakshis. Gidin that currently are tender and edible. But eventually, as the animal grows, it becomes very hard and it's not edible food anymore. By Korban Pesach, when you say you have to have a kazayis and you're nominated on eating, the Gidin is good enough. We don't look at the future, we look at the way it's current state. Yeah. You can include that in the Korban Pesach, in the nominations. The Yetze Korban Pesach. That means we treat like flesh. So what's the problem? So what's the flesh or the signs? Well, furthermore, the Torah has Rachmanas on the money of a Yid. We had in the Gemara, we had actually two different places. One place we said the Gemara Menachos, we learned the basis is when the Eibishter, by the rock, when there's no water, the Eibishter fed not only the Yidden, but also their animals. So we see Hashem has pity on the assets of a person. But Rashi always brings from another place where the house is full of leprosy. First, we remove all the kalim from the house. So and obviously we need both rayas. The problem with the raya of the water and the rock is that it was for Klal Yisrael. How do you know for an individual Yid Hashem also? Kosa. On the other hand, the raya from the house is not a great raya because we take out of the house, remove from the house even the metal kalim, but all you have to do is go to the mikveh. So you take everything out of the house, but what do you call it? In the case of the animals, you have to give them to drink. So we see that Torah chas. So Mela, in other words, if you have a choice, make something treif for something kosher. Why make it treif? Torah has rachmanas. Let they say the animal is kosher. An interesting philosophical attitude that generally. Let's keep the animal kosher if we can, because trade has rachmanis and Jewish money. It must be Rabba, not Rabba, because Papa never spoke to Rabba. That's why it says on the side we should edit it to Rabba. Papa says, Rabba, what are you talking about? Rab Shimon Lakish, first of all, Rish Lakish, argues Rabbi Yechanan. And second of all, we soon the Raisa. And we're talking here about, it's not a question of the trade has rachmanis and Hesed. If it's treif, it's treif. Okay, even if you want to pass in this way, you want to decide like Rabbi Yechanan, fine. But don't say ma lechus as if ignore Rish Lakish doesn't count, and we're talking about a question whether it's osama Torah or not. Ishtig, Rabba didn't answer. Why didn't Rabba answer? Rabba said that the halach is always like all he had to do is answer. Rish Lakish's opinion is ignored here, because Rish Lakish, Rabba himself said the halach of Rish Lakish only in 3 cases. Like Kinyan Paydas and getting if you have the Kinyan usage is actually as if you have ownership as well regarding Gavel, regarding if you're chaylitz, you can give a chalitza to a woman who's pregnant and make a tonight that you have to wait to see whether the child survives and there's no need for a chalitza or not. Anyway. So what's he worried about? So the reason why Rabbi was stumped was because Rabbi Yechanan actually changed his mind. He agreed with Rish Lakish that the sign is the Gidin, the flying sign on the top of the page discussing the Gidin, that the Gidin, the sinews are not considered meat. And therefore, since Rabbi Yechanan changed his own mind, it's not considered meat. That's why Rabbi was stumped when he asked him this question. Why in the world did he say, you're not worried at all about what are you worried about? Of course you're worried about, because the halach is that since Sefer Lahaksha is eventually will get tough, even now, those edibles not considered meat. And therefore he passed it wrong. You asked me a question from Mishnah where it clearly says that the head, which is tender and so on, even though later on gets, whether it's matame or and so on. I say that Mishnah says that it's considered that soft parts are considered. We don't look at the future; we look at the ways right now. Is a das yachid, but I agree to Rish Lakish that the halacha should be that if in the future it turns hard, it's hard. So therefore, that's why he was stumped. There's once a case where a bone was broken by an animal, the yotze that stuck out a bit, and we said before that most of it is covered by meat, then it will be healed. But what happened was the shtakel kurtisimene. It wasn't just exposed; part of it went missing. Part of that bone that was sticking out fell down. And the question is, will it heal in this way as well or not? Does it have to still be there? All of the entire bone has to be intact, and then the flesh around it sort of makes it grow back, or but if it falls, a piece of it falls off, it doesn't work, or even so, it'll grow back to bone. Actually, the one of the Rishonim learned a different shot altogether. He learns that he didn't have roiv basar. You have to have roiv basar right around the bone. But after a piece broke off, now suddenly you have roiv basar. You look at it when it broke. Was the most of the bone surrounded by meat and the flesh, and therefore it'll heal? Or we don't care what happened then, but we'll look at it right now. Right now, of course, the bone part of it's chipped away. So now you have roiv basar because it was, it was a very almost roiv, and now it became roiv. Also, Abaye waited 3 yomim tovim. Abaye did this a number of times. We had it before as well. He waited 3 yom tovim before he. In other words, he wanted to consult. He wanted to consult. Abaye never had a problem answering it immediately, but when it comes to halacha, he wanted to consult. But we had an Rashi Yivamis that this illegally was not because there's no oiler regel in times of Abaye. So they used to get together like a yachakala and learn. But the Rashi said there a beautiful thing. Rashi said, "Shem Agoinim." In Yevamas, he said that in the yard site of a big tzaddik, everybody would go to the oil, and they would sit there and say shiurim and talk and learning what the tzaddik said, and also b'chlal talk and learning. That's what the rigla was. And he waited for 3 then because different tzaddikim had different talmidim. They would come. About the Master says, forget about it. Big problem here. How exactly what happened? So the animal's still living. Nebuch, this guy is waiting 3 reglas until he'll get a psaked in, and the ram has a broken foot. It's today for not today. Well, for the animal still alive, it's sort of a lie that the animal you can see is it healing or not healing. So this might be 9 months later. Has anything changed? So you don't even need a rav. You can just see what's happening. But anyway, so someone said, you know what? Forget about it. Zilka made the rav go to his colleague, his rival. Rava, Bereid Rabbi Yisrael Bar Chama. This is the famous Rava whose father was Rabbi Yisrael Bar Chama, and the Charifa Sakina. He sharp like a knife. You always would have thought that Abai was one who was sharp, but he said he was sharp like a knife, meaning that he'll give you an answer straight away. So Takacha. Also, he went to Rava. Almost Rava said, Mechdi, let's see. It said Nishbaret and be Yatzalchutz Tanah. What did we learn in our Mishnah that the bone broke and it's stuck outside? We say Bereid Basar, then it's all right. No, Mali Nofa, Mali Yiseh. What's the chilik in logic whether part of it fell down, or Mali Yiseh? What's the chilik if it's there? In other words, if you look at Rashi, it's very simple to understand pshat. Mali, as long as you have roiv basar around the bone, what's the chilik? A little bit chipped away. The whole idea is it's not just there to protect the bone, to protect the animal. It's there to actually help the bone heal. So even if a little bit broke, everything it'll grow back. What about it? Let's say the rave is not in one place. It's all connected. It's pieces here, piece here, piece there around the bone. But if you gather them all together, it'll be rave. Or what happens? Okay, mislak is mao. What happens if misrace is mao? What happens if it's very, very thin? And it's covering most of the etzem, but it's very, very thin. Is that also going to help heal? What about mismasmas mao? What about if it rotted away? It's still there, the bossa, but it's rotten. It's still going to heal that. We don't answer the hechidam in mismasmas. What's the definition of mismasmas? Generally, a doctor would see it. He would take it, cut it out. He would excise it. What was it being? We don't answer. What about there's a puncture in that bossa that's surrounding the meat? There's a little puncture, so air gets in, and so on. Will it still heal or not? But the what happens if, let's say, it's roiv, but not the meat immediately close to the bone? It's a bit the higher part of the meat but it's not mamish attached to the bone. Is that good enough? But it's roiv. We learned before yesterday the machlekes and ulzner that oil has the same din like basa, protecting. That hide can protect, and hide is not attached to the bone, so it's no different than the shnei. It's like suspended, a bit removed. Same thing with the shnei shlishi, the 2/3 of the flesh. It's a bit raised, but it's all right. So where it says no, Dilma de Kona Moshcha Didei. That you can't bring a knife there. Maybe it's talking about over there, interesting lotion there. That may be that that the hide was acquired, put a stake on its place. In other words, that the hide we're talking about is not where there used to be flesh and the flesh is gone and there's hide. He's talking about where there was no flesh, a part of the bone where there's no flesh there, and what's the connected to the bone? The hide, and the hide put a stake there. I'm here, and he's close to the bone. Rashi said, Kevin, but a puppy boil, and he asked the question, what about Nigda Kemin Tabas? What happens right where the meat is? You cut out to the side like a ring, a circle, and it's a hole all the way through. But most of the bone is surrounded by flesh, but you made a hole right all the way through. He resolved it from here. The Chachamim, the Laroifi, I also asked the specialist, the doctors. Remember, today has something to do about healing. I asked them, but they told me, what do you do in a situation like this? They said to me, what you do is, you take a bone, stam a bone, and you make an incision in the meat that's around the broken bone of this animal. And what happens is, the blood that you just now created will come out. It'll congeal, and that blood is how, and will join the other flesh there, so they will join together. It'll grow back. The flesh will grow back. But don't use a knife, because a piece of metal is going to ruin it completely. That's only talking about where the bone has already made a stake. In other words, that the bone is stuck to the flesh. Not where the hole is, but around to other flesh as well. So all therefore has a bearing on the bone and will help it heal. So this is a Mishnah that is totally outside, and Rabbi Kiva said me yesterday that explaining the connection between this Gemara here with the end of the Gemara of Uber, where you found inside the mother's womb, and regarding the Ava sticking out, and this is sort of a connection of Gemara here. But now we go back to Uber, and we're going to finish the Pedic. Says the Mishnah, I have to tell you that every time you learn this, I'm not 100% sure what a shilya is. Because we have a shilya, we have a shafir, and the Gemara talks about a shilya normally be touched in an embryonic sac. And the shafir is something similar with and Rashi seems to be saying that the shilya is where the embryo grows in. But then we talk about the Gemara here that the embryo is not inside the shilya, and the shilya is outside the shilya. So either it's a sac, but it breaks open the last few days before the animal is about to come out. And then you just have to work out, so what's the shafir and what's the shilya? The shafir is like when it starts growing, it's inside the uterus, inside this little sac, which keeps all the, it's all fluid and it helps growing. I remember seeing a long time ago, somebody want to say it's actually the umbilical cord. That's what the shilya is. But the shfir is the sac and something outside. You see the Lashon Mishnah in the Gemara especially, it's like it's really outside of the vlad, but it's connected to the vlad. Anyway, let's see what the said. And you found inside there a shilya. And you don't see obviously a vlad inside there. But we learned before we had about it, it's bis. Is nefesh hayafa techlana. Interesting, a euphemism. Nefesh hayafa. A person who's not very, fastidious, and you're not so particular. Eat it. In other words, it's kosher. You want to eat it? It's pretty mis. The einamatame. But because it's pretty mias, we don't treat it like food. So therefore, it's not mitame loy tumas eichlin. That it's not mitame. It's not mitame. It doesn't receive the tumah as food. The loy tumas nevelas. Nor is it a nevela. It's not food. It's not meat. So if the mother died, you found the shili inside. It's not considered a nevela. If you're allowed to eat it, if you're allowed to eat it, if you found let's say the mother died, which the entire behemoth of he found the shili inside. Api halacha, you're allowed to eat it. We say it's like a bone. It's not food at all or not. But anyways, there's no tuna. But if you decided you want to eat it, so you now made it into food. It's metame tumas. That's how they explained up Shimon Marshuz that he says that poshu for malchus, you don't have to wait for a shir of kazayis. That's only for a korban, but for malchus, even a kosher, you get malchus because he said you machshav it. Your machshava made say that this is kosher, but how are you eating it? Even it's a quarter of a kazayis. So if you had in mind, this should be food. It's food. But it's not. Even if you have machshava, it's food, but it's not meat. You can't make it into meat. You can make it into food. You want to eat it, you want to eat it, so that's edible. But you cannot make it into basar. So in the veil is only about basar. You can't turn it into meat. It's not meat. Shilya shiyotza mixasa, so part of the shilya went outside of the animal. Now the rule is that there's ain't shilya below vlad. That every shilya, well, what's the shilya? Why is the shilya there? Because a vlad was about to be created. A baby was in a cow. A baby calf was about to be formed and started being forming. How come you don't see the vlad inside? Could two possibilities. Either it's totally disintegrated because it was a miscarriage, totally disintegrated, or the vlad is still inside, recessed inside the animal. You're only seeing a mixed shilya. Now, we learned before that if the head comes out and then even goes back in, it's as if it was born already. It's independent from the mother, there's no ben kui or anything else. So you found a shilya, shiyotza miksasa, that a part of it went out, and now, and you don't see a vlad there, as we'll see more later, is asur bachil. Why? We're saying maybe there was a vlad there, maybe the head went outside, and now that vlad is disintegrated. But the shilya already is separated from the mother, and therefore you're not allowed to eat it because it was born. It's even melachai, or it was born. Yeah. Siman vlad be'isha, siman vlad behemi. You see a shilya, you know the difference was a vlad side by a person and side by an animal. Then it says a hamav keres. Let's say this is the first the offspring of this cow, right? This is a b'chayr. Sheipilya shilya, and what came out was a shilya. But you don't see a vlad because it's disintegrated. So what do we do here? Why throw it to the dogs? There's no kedusha, Maybe it was a vlad. Because there's two possibilities there. First of all, maybe there's a small chance it was no vlad. Or even if there is a vlad, maybe it's nidme. Maybe the vlad that was there was not like the mother. It was a cow gave birth to a goat. And there's nothing to b'chayr if you don't give birth. The b'chayr has to be like the mother. And second of all, even if there's a vlad, who said that the vlad ever came stuck his head out? Maybe the vlad was in, and it disintegrated what was inside the mother's womb and never went out. So therefore, a rave, and maybe it's in the cave. A girl, there's no b'chayr. So 50% there's no b'chayr. 50% there is, and then a little bit of chance that maybe it was nidma, even though definitely was a child, but maybe a nidma. So therefore, rave is rave. Then but if it's kodesh, let's say karm shlamim, then who cares, male or female, makes no difference. And then tikava yiberein now certain people that used to because the animals miscarried, they had a loss of money. They would do these signs. So, for example, they used to bury it in a crossroad. Somehow or another, this is supposed to be some voodoo stuff to help out your baby. And I'll do that. The internal should be you're not hanging on a tree as if somehow or another there's going to be a good omen that your cow in the future won't miscarry. It's dark kemoid. Anything you do, which is doesn't make sense, then it's you following the goyim's ways. So anyway, first of all, how do you know? How do you know about the shilya? Doesn't remember like called behaim. You're allowed to eat the shilya that's inside the mother's womb. Then we learn called behaim. It says you're allowed to eat it, right? So it's meat. How do you know? We already had before the mother. Called behaim toichlu. The rabbis of the shilya. Anything inside the behaim you can eat. Yochel afil yotza mitzasa. Even part of it now also. Tamaleimer oisa v'loy shilyasa. Tell you what, that which is a stira. So he says oisa, the animal itself, but not the shilya. Start off saying everything inside. They tell me not the shilya. What's going on here? Okay, and then the only pshat is that if there's a shilya, then maybe there's a vlad, and the vlad might have stuck its head out, and therefore you're not allowed to eat it. But if you found the shilya inside, not just the mixas, if you found it inside, eat it. Since it's a fact it was a vlad, why do you need a pasuk if part of it is out? It's obvious that it's a suffix. It's a suffix. Maybe there was a vlad, maybe the head went out in that shilya part that was sticking out of the animal. Everyone uses the Gemara to ask on the Rambam. The Rambam holds that a suffix deraisa matayda l'kula. Whenever that he had a claim and that if there's a suffix according to the Torah, then it's Rabbanon who said be machnas. So what's the Gemara's question here? It's a suffix, and you're asking, well, let me you need a pasuk because according to the Rambam, suffix deraisa is l'kula. So Rabbanon be machmer. That's why you need a pasuk. And they try to deal with it. Okay, you take the hide of a donkey, which is not edible, but you cook it up, and now it's edible. How do we treat that? What exactly are you asking? Now, shoku means not stamp cooking. Shoku means stewed. A long, long time. Even though somewhere else in Ashi we had the shlika is actually less than bishul, but here most places shlika we say is more than bishul.
Usually shlokas, the vegetables disintegrated, became part of the water.
Because it was stewed. It was like for a long time. It was cooked for a long time. So this oir chamoir, which is tough and mias, but you cooked it for a long time and now it's edible. What's it in? What you're asking me a question whether it passes on tumah. Panina, we learned already. And as we'll see in a minute. And you're asking me whether it becomes an avela, is it considered basar as far as an avela is concerned, right? If it's considered as a part of the avela of the chamoy, also Panina. What's the story? The time we learned the hide vashili and the shuli ain't metamet tumah. That's clearly the shuli is not metamet. Okay, let's talk about pure raw hide. Oid sheshokul. If you took the oid and you cooked it up, the hashilya shechishavela or a shilya, which we said before, most people don't eat it. But if you decide you want to eat it, the metamet tumah klar. It says if you turn it into food, it's food, and it's more than just machshaveh. Hey, then a ma'isa, you cooked it, so it's food. Okay, so it is mekamet tumah. Now the next question: is it basar? There's two steps here. Oichel, stam food, and then is it basar? Tumas Mavela is nami because Mavela only applies to basar. Can you believe that as well? It says in the pasuk, if the behemoth dies, you can eat it if anybody touches. But nivlosa becomes coming until night. So idashim nivlosa, it's Mavela, it's kakis, but not the hide, but some not the bones, but the signs, a little bit kanai, but the horn, but the fire, not the hooves. What's the chiddush over here? Obviously, it's not meat. What's your chiddush? We're talking about you made it a delicacy. You cooked it, and now it's edible. And the chiddush is no nevela. So what's your question there? He said no. I'm going back to the first day talking about oichlin. I would have thought that Mishnah is talking about a cow, other animals, their hide. If you cook it, it's edible. But a chamoid is so tough and it's so mias that maybe even if you cook it, it's not edible. V'shayni oil chamoid and moyis. And oil chamoid is much worse. And that's not what the Bryce is talking about. And therefore, you would have thought, or the question is that maybe it's not metamet tumah. And we don't answer the question. Shilya shiyatza. So here the Gemara here. Just tell me how you understand shilya. So it says here, if part of the shilya went out, you don't see a vlad at all. Or we say that what? That maybe there was a vlad, and shibla vlad was a vlad there, and maybe the head went out. It's a suffix, and therefore maybe it was born, and therefore it's not gates with the shchit of the mother, and it's eva melachai and so on. Once it emerged. Ablaza says this is all talking about that you're not allowed to eat it. Ela she'ein ima vlad. That word is talking about that there is no vlad. You don't see a vlad inside the animal. All you see is a shilya. So you say must have been a vlad there. Where's the vlad? It's disintegrated, and then now there's a suffix. Maybe the head went out. Havel yesh ima vlad. If there's a vlad still inside, right, or the majority of the vlad is still inside the animal. Then, so what's the problem then? For sure, everything's good. And the way Rashi learns it, we're not worried that maybe there was another Vlad, maybe there was another Shilya.
And that will be Matama.
No, and and they all disintegrated. And that other Shilya belongs to this Vlad. And the Shilya you're seeing here is the other Vlad that disintegrated. No, maybe there was another Vlad. No, the simple pshat would have been maybe they were twins, and there was another Vlad inside that disintegrated, and that stuck his head out. Rashi says, no, there were two Shilyas. The Shilya that you're seeing right now is not really this Vlad Shilya, is another Vlad, and that Vlad disintegrated, so maybe the Chash is still there, that maybe he stuck its head out. And this Vlad over here is from another Shilya which just appeared, which tells you that the Vlad is not inside the shilya, it's outside the shilya, and either that it completely breaks, so all the blood go outside the shilya before, or it's like the umbilical cord that attaches to the blood.
Aren't you talking about when the shilya ruptured or broken? That's how it came out. I mean, otherwise it would still be attached.
If the blood is inside the shilya, it'll be attached. What do you mean? What do you mean that this shilya is not this blood shilya? Look at Rashi. Rashi says it. Yeah. 3 lines, 9 lines. Maybe it was another Vlad there. The Yotze, the Shilya Zu Shalahi. This Shilya that mixes went out, and the majority is still inside. And there's a Vlad inside. Is another Shilya? Is from another Vlad. So what's this Vlad doing inside there?
So inside you have one Vlad and one Shilya sitting.
No, that's what I'm talking about. We're talking about Rashi's Vlad is inside the Shilya. or inside. If inside, we don't know yet. Is it inside the shilya or outside? Which means if the vlad is not inside the shilya and there's a shilya, then definitely the shilya belongs to another vlad. Definitely does. It seems that either the last month or so, whatever it is, the vlad goes outside of the shilya, and that's why we're talking about this, or the shilya means not exactly the sack. The shpir is the sack, and the shilya is like an umbilical cord or something, or I don't know. Is it mitzias?
Is an inner and outer layer.
Or the two sacks? I don't know. I don't think so. I really feel remiss years ago, and I can't remember, it's the last cycle or 2 cycles ago, somebody gave me this sefer. It's an unbelievable sefer on Chulin, and I just found it yesterday, just when we don't need it anymore. We finished sefer. It's unbelievable. The pictures here are just so detailed and so clear. We would have. I remember I said the same thing last time. I said I'll make sure I bring it out this time. I just found it. Last night. It's an unbelievable sefer. Advacha protis. Mamish to find it the day you don't need it anymore. It's true, but the pictures are unbelievable. The first section, all the pictures.
Means you've got to do.
Sorry?
Means you've got to do another cycle.
Yeah, we got to revise the whole Chulin again.
Check your Zeus Then you can decide politically.
Pictures.
Then you can decide if you hold from them or not.
Everything is. So I looked up Shilya to see what that they have no pictures. Anyway, let's come back to Gemara. Says Gemara, right? Rabbi Yechon says, "Beinim of Vlad, Ben Yeshim of Vlad. I don't care. There's a Vlad there, not a Vlad there. You are machmer and chayshel of Vlad. Even though there's a Vlad, they were saying maybe there's another Vlad, and this Shilya belongs to the other Vlad, and therefore there's a chash. Maybe that disintegrated and the head went out." And you start talking about you and the Chumra, but Rabbi Elazar is more mach Rabbi Yechon, and the way you learn it, Rabbi Elazar is more mekel. He's saying if there's a Vlad, we're not worried. Elid mahachim, this is how you learn. It's not tied to a Vlad. Avo kshuda. See, kshuda sounds more like it's not really that the vlad is outside and it's like an umbilical cord or something. Yeah, like an umbilical cord or something like that. Avo kshuda bevlad. If it's attached to vlad, then we're not worried about another vlad. Rabbi Yechon says, "Onein lana elashilya beloy vlad." If this whole din is only if there's no vlad, then we're machmir that there must have been a vlad, and therefore avo yesh ima vlad. I don't care kshuda vlad. I don't care if it's attached to it. I don't care en kshuda vlad. We're going to assume that this shilya belongs to that vlad, and there's nothing to worry about. En chayshel vladacha. I don't even look Rabbi Elazar. Tani goes Rabbi Elazar. Hamapel mean behema. If you're mapil like a behema, the din is that you get for a zacher the 7 days of tumah, then 30 days of tara, and so on. That only applies if you gave birth to the human form. But Mapel mean behema chayv oif. Or if you gave birth to another human form, the shilya imon, have a shilya with them. I mean, it's assumed the shilya was from the chay and the oif. If there was a kshur, we're not worried about any other vlad. We're going to say, well, that's probably there that the behema chay came from this. That's it, the behema chay, and therefore, if it was a ladle yeveshta, there was no blood at all when you were born. We still say that there's we say that what that there's no worry. You don't have to worry about the dinim of what do you call it? We don't have to worry that maybe there was another vlad, a real vlad there, a human vlad. But if it was not attached to this vlad, maybe this vlad had another shilya that fell out. This shilya here belonged to another a human form, but we're machmer. Therefore, we're going to give you the days of tumah, the 9 days of tumah, the 4 days of tumah. We're not giving you any days of tahara because maybe it was a behema. Maybe this is a vlad, and therefore, if it's a later yeveshta, then you go back to the normal dinim of a nidar zava. You see, there's the shpir of the shilya and there's the shilyasa shel shpir. So it's 2 different things. The shpir normally is an embryonic sac, and the shilya then is something further than that, something out of that. Either it's the umbilical cord or it's some other sac. Don't know. Hamav kedesh.
Shapir is the Havlad. Shabbat Gdelim at Samis Vagidim Babasar Shavlad is amazing.
The blood itself, you're saying, not the sac.
So what happened to the inside of that? The oil remains and everything else disintegrates.
Shapir, maybe the baby.
Yeah, so the whole baby disappears. There's nothing there. You don't see anything. Okay. But when it says before, kshuda b'vlad.
That was about the shilya.
Yeah, the shilya, kshuda. If it's a sack that the thing says, it's not kshuda. inside. So
The story that the sack is attached to it.
but when by a sack, the whole idea of the baby is formed inside the sack. What exactly Matthias is? That's why it lends you a little bit to think maybe it's an umbilical cord. Is maybe it's something that attaches to the baby.
There's different lessons for the
I know, but here when we talk about it in detail. Well, let's finish. Hamav Kedesh, Pila, my timer. Why do we say you can throw away to the dogs? Why aren't we worried that maybe it's a b'chayr and therefore it's kedusha? I'm going to give whatever yami. Rei behemis yildes davar. Yoi behemis yildes davar hakodesh b'chayr. Umil yildes davar shen kar b'chayr. Most behemoths give birth to a normal behemoth, right? Which is chayav b'chayr. But within that, what do you mean that some that give birth to something which is not kosher b'chayr? Mine nidme. A cow gave birth to a goat. Right, it's nidma. It looks like another animal, and there the din is b'chor shor. We live from b'chor shor. It has to be the b'chor. It has to be just like the mother. If it's nidma, there's no din of b'chor. So that's already a meat. That's no din of b'chor. The chol hayoylus machtas chor machtas kev. Then you have half and half. Smoich miyuta the nidma. The machtas kev is having chor miyuta. Chor miyut. Rashi is explaining. The Gemara seems to say that the famous Chuvas Rashba, Simon Taf Aleph. And I'm not because I remember all the Chuvas Rashba, but just the Chuvas Rashba I learned when I was a boxer, we really cocked them. He explains the basis for Svek, and there he says that between the Shoyl and him, actually Shoyl says more than the Raj himself, that Svek is Matam Roiv. And a raya to that would be, from the Gemara right here. Rashi says it's Svek, and the Gemara clearly says it's Roiv. No, Machsa, then you add the meat, right? So that's the Roiv. Roiv possibilities are that's not a B'chayr. And yet they say that it's like a Svek, which means that is the basis of Svek. Anyway. But then the Radra says, "Efsher oy yoser," and that throws a spanner in the work. If it's not right, what is it? Anyway, which is the Rivash and others talk about all that. To cover my time by Magdashin, the din is that you bury by a korban shlamim. There you treat it like kodesh. My time, if you found a shilya, my time a ruba by me. I don't get zocher in the cave either way. By shlamim is no different zocher in the cave. It's still a kodesh, still a korban. And now a meat may be nidma. So of course you treat it like kodesh, you bury it.
Shlomim has to be a female?
No, shlomim can be both. The oila has to be one kind, and usher has to be another kind. Chatos has to be in the cave. Chatos has to be in the cave. They ain't kavim oisa, you don't bury it. Right? We don't want you to out in the street for a good sign. Anything you do because it's medicinal, you give a certain liquid or something, and Rasha gives an example, even a lachash, which can be medicinal, that works. We know the din of mumcha, all these things that are 3 times or 3 different doctors that like to show them. That's not what darkei mighty, because it's a proven method. It works. There's no medicine, and it's just voodoo stuff. That's why you're doing it, because the goyim do it. That's mamish darkei mighty. And I'll give an example, taking this shilly and burying it at a crossroad. How's that going to help that the animal in the future is not, you're worried that the animal in the future will have miscarriages, it costs you money. So you put in the crossroad and somehow or another this is going to help. What basis is that? No basis. No boss, you do because they're going to do it. That's called mamish darkei mighty. Superstitions. That's mamish darkei mighty. What Rashi says, interesting, Rashi says, doimin l'nechush. Why is it only doimin? This is mamish nechush. It has no logic to it. Nothing at all. You're doing something here, so something else should happen over there. You're believing it's something. It smells of dark. It's darkei mighty. But anyway, Rashi says doimin. What's that? Actually, I see here. There's an edit here. No, takes out the word. No, nothing. Still doing middle nechish. Anyway, back to the Gemara. So the Gemara, Hatani, we learned the Braisa, Elon, a tree, Shemashi Perois. So you have a tree, you have a problem. All the fruits keep on falling down, sliding off. So what you do is, Soikri Besikra. What you do is, you can make a red mark, and the toin of abonim, or you can put stones in it. By putting stones into the tree, now has to carry the stones. It takes away the fats. There's a lot of sap there, which makes the fruit slide off. But if you make it carry, then it sucks out some of the sap, and therefore the tree. So the second thing makes sense. But this thing making a red mark on it sounds like darkei mighty voodoo stuff. You want the strength, the sap to be to thin out. Ella soikroi besikra, putting a red mark. Amai, why are you doing that? So you're interesting what Gemara says. You know why you're doing that? When you do something you read, everybody notices it. People will see that you have rachmanis on you. Your tree is not producing fruits or it's falling down. And they're going to daven on your behalf. Tanya, we learned that it says in the pasuk the Tomei Yikre, that by a tzaras, everyone says the Tomei Yikre. People should call out that this person Tomei. Tzaddik lo yidil rabim. If you have a tzaddik, there's a mitzvah to notify everybody. But rabim yeah, okay, that's right. And we should daven for him. If you have any tzaddik, you should tell people about it so they should say tell him for you. But rabim makshel rachim. Rabim do that, it's all right. In the Ran and others say from here, that's the mitzvah b'ger cholim. The mitzvah b'ger cholim is not something. One thing is Avos Soul, as the Rambam says, to go in and help the guy out, give him feel better. But also, so you see the guy's inside, you'll daven for him, and that's the mitzvah. Amar Ravina says, "Command to linen according to who we follow. Command we hang up kufsa bedikla. We hang up over there that a thing of dates on this palm tree to tell you that the dates are falling down. Command ki haytan yitana. You're telling people, you're notifying them. I got a problem here. They should daven for you. Vakish olav rachmi rab. Hadnalog behema makshat. Okay, have a good.